I'm Helen, editor at Client Culture, and this is a meeting of a few of the artists who contributed to the Pollination Zine. Pollination Zine was a project promoting the cross-pollination of ideas through the act of chainmail mail art, and this was happening at the beginning of June, which was part of the AntiUniversity Now Festival. Just to give a bit of background on the AntiUniversity Now, it's a collaborative experiment to challenge institutionalised education, access to learning, and the mechanism of knowledge creation and distribution. AntiUniversity Now was set up to reignite the 1968 Anti-University of London with the intention to challenge academic and class hierarchy and the exclusivity of a 9K year degree. Client Culture is a artist-run publication and is mainly about looking at ways of telling stories, telling news through creative artistic methods, and bringing people to collaborate and looking at ways in which we can collaborate outside of the commodification of the arts. And so far we've published a series of magazines about the Mayflower. We are centred in Plymouth. I co-created it with Anne, who's there in the yellow jumper. And yeah, this was our project that we decided to do. And what was really interesting is that our zine kind of covered lots of different things that were happening throughout the whole year. So I sent you guys the PDF of the zine, and it covers the Black Lives Matter movement, COVID, all of the different things. If you'd like to introduce yourselves, that'd be great.
Hello, I'm Sarah. I was diligently had myself on mute. It's really interesting, these mechanisms we're using to communicate with each other kind of actually create some interesting barriers. But yeah, I'm Sarah, I'm down in Cornwall, and I was really pleased to be asked to take part in the project. I felt like I had a lot of time on my hands, as a lot of people did, and it was really lovely to be involved in something like this. I've never been involved with anything like this before. So it was, yeah, thank you.
Hi, I'm Alexandra Rose Krause, ARK in the zine. I am from the States originally, but currently living in France, actually. So it turned into an international thing, basically, which I think is really cool. My social platforms are Scary Music Productions on Instagram. And yeah, that's where I can be reached. Same thing as well, honestly. I've never really been involved with something quite like this. And I think during the pandemic, there was a lot to be shared. So it's been a very interesting journey. And yeah, that's me.
Hi all, really good to meet you. My full name is Anne-Marie Bala, and I'm also based in Cornwall at the moment. And my main practice is documentary photography, but also do a little bit of audio explorations. But yeah, it's just really, I've always embraced the idea of AntiUniversity since we started looking at client culture and what that entailed in the dissemination of knowledge in universities. And yeah, it was just such a brilliant project to be a part of. It's just very fun as well as innovative, I felt, and collaborative in a way that feels, I don't know, just enjoyable. And yeah, and I'm really pleased to be able to meet you as well, and just to put a face to the artwork that I've seen in the zine. So yeah, thank you, Helen, for organizing. Amazing.
I also got an email from someone who couldn't turn up today, Lara Band, and I'll read you what she sent me quickly. I did the piece that was swallows with the banner saying true, kind, fair. The saying a friend told me ages ago as a maxim to live life by. I think it comes from the School of Practical Philosophy. The print was a dry point etching on a cut open tomato puree tube, printed with a pasta machine I got from a charity shop and turned into a press. I like old school tattoos and the blotchy effect. I really enjoyed taking part, and in fact, took inspiration from your idea to do a similar project for the Chat Contemporary and Historical Archaeology in Theory conference this year. And she said, thank you for the opportunity. So we went all over the place with this project. We went to London a couple of times, Devon, Plymouth, where I am, Cornwall a couple of times as well. We went to France to see Alex for a bit. And then we went with Alex to Bristol. And then we went to Germany, which was really cool. This is the zine. The idea behind the Peace Garden, by the way, I know it's very hippie. Basically, I heard about this whilst researching for gardening. And it's the idea of a garden that everyone's welcome to come and think and relax. Those are our little rules and things. Sam Richards, who did the first piece, he was actually a part of the original AntiUniversity in the 60s. So I'm sad that he couldn't come tonight, unfortunately. Here we are.
So thank you very much. Like Sam's piece actually visually inspired what I did. So I was really open, I think, and that was the opportunity that the zine created, was to do something that I would have never done before. Like so the graphic nature of Sam's piece as it looked on the paper made me think of these of the QR codes that have become a sort of a language of digitizing information and sort of abstract, but they also look like landscapes. So the landscape in connection to the land here in Cornwall. So I looked at the issue of housing and the cost of housing and land in Cornwall, where I live, and especially in Falmouth. The newspaper cuttings, it was just like it invited me to use black ink to cover the housing and the I want to say, what is the opposite of landscapes, like innerscapes, the scapes of the houses. So the houses were blacked out, and there remained the land and the landscape. So yeah, I was thinking about value and place and landscape as seen from above as well. So the QR code represents a project that I documented called Planning Matters by Paul Cheney, who invited artists to speak about the nature, the relationship to the land. And one of the artists that was part of that program at Kessel Barton is called Leila Curtis, and she did a project called Trespass, which looked at this land that was a common land effectively near a factory, and then it was enclosed by these property developers, and then the people to access the land, they would have to trespass. And then one of the signs that was on the land, see if I can see it. So they hanged the man and flogged the woman that steal the goose from the common, but they let the greater villain loose who steal the common from the goose. Yeah, so all these just pieces came together to like as a reflection on land and landscape here in Cornwall.
Well, thank you, Anne. Does anyone have any questions that they want to ask Anne about her piece?
Hi, Anne. So in relation to Cornwall as a greater landscape, was there any particular area of Cornwall that really was like pinnacle to your piece, you would say?
Yeah, so it is Falmouth. It is Falmouth because there's been such an exorbitant rise in the house prices, and there is a bigger issue as well. So I think there are some crossovers in Falmouth being a university town that is home to the smallest universities, one of the smallest universities in the UK. But what it has created is a very unique landscape of 25% available housing here is multiple occupancy, which means that drives out the access of families or people that want to have long-term tenancies. So it creates a precariousness on the housing market. So and I feel like I was part of this problem because I came here to study, and I lived in multiple housing accommodations. There are a lot of I guess difficulties in relating to this issue, and it's quite a visceral issue for me. So it's really good to have the chance to explore it in this way creatively. So I'm curious what you think of it. Like if there's anything that comes to mind when you see it.
I find it interesting because I was also a student at Falmouth University back in 2015. What now to me seems like ages ago, but really wasn't. But it's because I remember it being also a problem then, but to see it escalate so much, not only because of like the issues that the area and the town has always had with balancing locals versus students, but also with now the pandemic and Brexit and everything occurring, especially considering how much funding like Cornwall as a whole, not to mention the universities themselves and everything, would get from outsourcing and everything like that. So it's almost heartbreaking to see it.
Well, yeah, it is heartbreaking in many ways, and also thinking about the natural landscape. So, and who owns the land? Like that is also a big question. And landlords and these kind of concepts are really big things here. So thanks. It's funny, we must have crossed paths at some point because I graduated in 2013. So yeah.
Just by chance, all of us studied at FAM. I was going to say, so all of us kind of know about that issue, the whole kind of wanting to move down and study here, but also know or find out about that issue about students taking up the housing and people locally finding it really difficult to access housing. So you're put in a really tough position that you didn't really ask to be in. And I can see by your black writing, the painting, that you're quite angry when you wrote that, and the poem about the goose. Yes, so I think if we scroll through, and then I know both of your work, so we'll go to the next person. Yeah, this one I thought was quite interesting as well, because they were talking about 0 hours, which is something that we talked about a lot at Client Culture when we started up. But I like how they've just like sort of blanked out all of the information that they've. I was trying to work out the other day what they were writing about, but I think what's behind is like important text or things they're trying to remember, and then they stuck on how they're feeling in the present, basically.
It almost looks like a list of a sort of like, not necessarily memories, but of important events that have occurred, and or not even necessarily just events, but aspects of life throughout time.
Yeah, yeah, I know that feeling. So this is a nice piece. This is what was really interesting getting it in the post finally, was seeing all how obviously the Black Lives Matter had really impacted artists who were involved in this project and how they felt about it at the time. So this was the piece the lady that I read her email earlier sent into the zine, which is, it does look like a tattoo to me. Alex, here we go.
Hi. So when I found out about the zine and about AntiUniversity and everything pretty much, I was very much in like a flurry of emotions, because I had entered France pretty much as soon as the pandemic really started to take hold of the world in March of 2020, last year. And at that time, when I was making my piece, when I was deciding, yes, I want to be a part of this zine, it was very much a whirlwind, because I was talking to friends who were also au pairs, and they were losing their jobs and not being able to go back home because of the coronavirus. And I was talking to friends back in the States and also in the UK, and how they were having their experiences with also Black Lives Matter, and just how difficult things were becoming. And so I kind of started this inner dialogue with myself, which is why it's a poem, but it's also not a poem. It's very much thoughts and feelings that are being released into mixed media. And it also, like with the last line, guilt fills a deep pit in my stomach, planting its seeds. That specifically, I really wanted to talk about because I feel like there's so many people right now throughout the world that are either they are recognizing what they have is really good and they're really happy for themselves, but they're also witnessing so much devastation that's occurring all throughout that it's hard to keep positive about being able to help or being able to feel good about what you have as well. And that was definitely a feeling that I was resonating with throughout because I thought I need to do more. I need to be a part of the Black Lives Matters movement. I need to be able to help other people. But I'm also in a foreign country that I don't know, and I don't know how to speak the language very well yet. And I do have a job that I'm supposed to be doing. And yet at the same time, I was being overworked for the hours I was doing because it was a lockdown. And it was a whirlwind. And I feel like a lot of people throughout have experienced these similar emotions. And I wanted to really put this out there so that people know that they're not alone, particularly. And I think that all kind of comes together with the stationery, the washi tape that I used as well, because at this time I had also become very involved in becoming a pen pal and writing physical letters to other people, which is partially of the second page why I made this. Inside the envelope, there would be a mix of the pictures and stories to put a smile on other people's faces. And I really wanted that sense of like community to come across. That's what my piece is about.
I just wanted to say that when I saw your piece, I really liked the fact that you had made like a mini collaborative piece within the collaborative piece. I thought that was really cool idea. And this page, I'll just show you now, these were all the little bits in the envelope, just in case you didn't see. So I sort of scanned them on a separate page. But these images of the women, are they your washi tape?
So I work a lot with washi tape as well as I have these cards of these images. That's what these are. And I have to physically glue them on usually, otherwise they won't stick. But I really like using them more as kind of loose leaflet things. That way other people might want to send them to somebody else. And it's like a piece of art is traveling all throughout the world.
How long did you spend thinking about what you were going to do before it arrived? Or did you just do it when it arrived?
No, that I took forever to think about it. Well, because also it was really difficult. It was definitely like a traveling work of art that I was doing because I was in France in one moment doing the pieces. And then the next moment I was in Bristol visiting my fiance, and I was just like at the flat and just working on it. I was just thinking, okay, I am literally traveling throughout different countries. I really wanted to give that kind of sense of it too, traveling different countries as well as being able to take a piece. But it took, I would say, like a month and a half of solid thinking about what I wanted to do, because I wavered between doing mixed media, doing poetry, or illustration as well. Because I do a lot of mixed media projects. My principal artwork, like the work that I would do, it has been music in the past. And I really wanted to continue that into this piece, but it was not fitting. And I was having a really hard time trying to make it fit. And then I realized what I was doing with the pen paling, with stationery, with mixed media, that made a lot more sense than trying to mold my professional life into this, basically.
I remember Alex actually from when I used to work as a cleaner at the university, which is when we first started Client Culture. And Alex plays a really unusual instrument, but I can't remember, what's the name of the instrument that you play?
The hurdy-gurdy?
Yeah, that's it, the hurdy-gurdy. She's the only person I know who plays an actual hurdy-gurdy. Scary Music Productions is Alex's Instagram. And Anne's is Avon Kerno. I don't think Anne mentioned that, did you, at the time? But I just realised that the next person who received it from Alex was Sarah.
The reason I asked about the time frame and the scale of it is because I'm not very good at dealing with things until they arrive. and actually I think it was fine, because it meant that I could do something that responded in the present moment. And I think that's something that we've all, well, not we all, it's something that I've discovered that a lot of people that I have had contact with over the last year have been trying to nurture and to learn to live in the present moment, because we can't make plans, or it's very hard to make plans at the moment. So actually, although I had thought about the flowers, because I just reached out to physically what was at my fingertips. I didn't have an awful lot to play with. But what I loved was it arrived in the post, and your piece had some pressed flowers. And I thought, oh, there we go. There was no need to overthink it. It arrived, it had a little guide, it had a bit of, there was a reason why it worked for me. It kind of made sense. So yeah, it gave me so that was lovely. So yes, I was definitely influenced by the things that had come before. And also I think there was so much despair in the other pages that had come before as well, that I quite wanted to focus on something joyful and bright, because it's so different to all those dark feelings. I feel like that period of time, it was when it arrived, we were really in the depths of the lockdown, and it felt like every day you woke up and you could go one way or the other. It was really easy to, or you would have a phone call from a friend and they would be either massively elated or they'd be feeling awful. I'm not sure I have anything else to say.
It's absolutely lovely. I love the way that it's mirrored, like those butterfly prints that, it looks like it's the same plants either side, but it's different plants all along. But I was wondering, obviously you're in Cornwall as well, so I was just wondering if these are like local plants to Cornwall, or was there anything behind like the plants that you picked?
They were all from within the space that I was locked down in. And that space did involve the walks that I was going on. So it was anything that was in the garden or anything that was along the walks that I was taking during lockdown. It's quite interesting using flowers, because it tells you, obviously they're pressed, so there's a mix of spring and summer flowers, but you kind of have a finite amount of time to use them, and you don't really know what they're going to turn out like, so you kind of just have to put some faith in when you put them in the pages. But I liked the idea that they represented, that they themselves represented what kind of nature I experienced during that very specific period of time. So there are wildflowers like the campions at the top that were once very bright pink but are now purpley, and then lower down there's the dahlias are the bright the ones that stayed really bright yellow. And actually the ones that stayed really bright yellow, they were dried rather than pressed, so they managed to keep their vibrancy, because despite the fact that they were out in the open, they had less protection. I think that was quite poignant.
So when I first saw your piece, because I did look through the zine when we first got it from Helen. When I first saw your piece, a smile just lit up on my face completely. You achieved your goal, basically. But it was so interesting to find somebody else using pressed flowers. I did not imagine that would happen, honestly, in a zine. That was really cool that we have that connection. And I was wondering, I suppose, how have you found pressing flowers, or even drying flowers as well, to play a part in your own life, or during the lockdown specifically as well? Like, how has that been playing a part? Has it been filling you with a lot more optimism, or is it something that just really relaxes you?
I think increasingly what I've been spending time on, and I think the pressing the flowers kind of links into it, is that learning how to accept outcomes. And you kind of have to accept what you get given when you open up the pressings of the flowers. So yes, I think it mirrors that a lot.
I found that a lot of people turned to nature during the lockdown, myself included. More so, I sort of turned to nature as a way of feeling calm and sort of getting through what you spoke about, which were those massive highs and lows. For some reason, my moods were like all over the place, but also, yeah, relating that to my feelings and reflecting on that, I think was really important for a lot of people, actually. So it's really nice that it showed up in the artwork.
I really appreciate the real beauty, in the organic nature of these flowers that you created. Does the pattern say something? Because I mean, to me, it speaks almost of organs, or kind of like, it makes me think of lungs or something. Did you have something in mind when you were thinking of the architecture of the piece?
No, sorry. I enjoy the experience of spending some time focusing on what was right there in front of me. No, it was more just playing. It was like a time to play and not think, really, and just allow something to happen. Yeah, rather than have to have some kind of guide, or rather than to do it with restriction, or because you have to do it a certain way. It was more about, feeling what would naturally happen. And actually what I found really interesting is that a lot of the yoga and the movement work, I say yoga in the loosest sense, it's more movement, really, meditative movement that I've been doing for quite a long time now with this amazing lady in Devon. A lot of what we do with her is about that. And I think it's quite interesting that it kind of naturally happened that I reached out to that.
Ah, that's wonderful. It just speaks to me like that spontaneity is almost a method for freeing yourself from the constrictions of lockdown, and it's just a beautiful invitation and a reminder that we have these ways really close to us to move. And I think if you think of the body, how actually our movements could be minimal, and yet even just the breath, it can, it's a whole body experience. It's like a wholesome, holistic experience. So it also, your piece like sings a bit. It sounds music, like it looks musical in a way. There's like a symphony there going on. Yeah, the rite of spring or summer.
I think Sam, who did the musical notes at the beginning, he's done a lot of work with it, experimental notations, and he would say that you could turn that into music for sure. Just need to use it as like some sort of inspiration.
Yeah, I'd love to hear that piece. Maybe a hurdy-gurdy.
But Sarah, do you have any socials or anything?
Yeah, at Figure Moon Retreats is the Instagram account of my yoga retreat days that we're starting for the very first time this year. Obviously, it's all a little bit up in the air because who knows when we'll actually be. It will feel safe to offer it.
Thank you so much. I apologize for having to leave early. I really enjoyed our conversation. Thanks a lot, and hope to catch up soon beyond this.
See you later.
Bye.
I'm just going to go through the rest of the zine. Oh, this was no dancing. I think this was a comment on not being able to have any fun. The lockdown feeling like that. This, I think, is related to the Black Lives Matter movement, taking off the head of a male. Oh, there we go, topple the statue. So.
I remember like there were so many different statues, not only in the States, but also in the UK, where like everybody was pulling down statues of so many different people. And I'm really curious to like if the artist had any specific statue they had in mind when they made this. Do you know, Helen?
No, I don't know, but I'm wondering now if you were in Bristol when they did, because that's the one in England that got toppled down, isn't it?
That happened, I think it was a week or two before I went to Bristol.
Okay.
And my fiance's brother actually was there, and like I don't know if they were like super involved, but they were there. They were in the crowd and messaged me like after it had happened. And they were talking to me about how empowering it was to be able to see the statue be thrown into the river. And it was just it was a really interesting thing to hear and understand, because I didn't know the connotations about the statue. I didn't know like the history or anything like that. And I think that just comes from like the perspective of a foreigner. anyways, is that there's always going to be a different history, but there's always like a universal truth, if that makes sense. Just because one country is dealing with a specific outcry and injustice that they are trying to go against and make right, doesn't mean that that same concept cannot go across the seas, which it did. Like, it's gone throughout the world now, which I find absolutely amazing. And there was such an outcry throughout the world. So it's really interesting with the connections.
What this kind of reminds me of is artists being kind of socially engaged with their work and making comments on it along the way. I know in Plymouth we renamed John Hawkins Square as a reaction to this. So little things as well have happened. He was a slave owner, and I know about him because of the Mayflower project I did and them going on the Mayflower to America. And really it was all about colonization and these people that we hold up and have remembered in statues about looking at the history. Why do we look up to these people? Why are these statues here? What does it represent? And further reaching to education, why don't we know about what they did and why people are angry, or why do some people know and kind of others don't? We ended up in Germany. She sewed into the paper and wrote on this side, decisive moments out of thin air. Time hangs over nothing in particular, over thin air that never thickens. The air of noise in the cloud binds. Bits of thin air like bits of thin thread reorganize the entire sky to keep with me the arrows pointed at different bits of being, which pollinate amongst each other, collect bits of thin air, for they are the spikes of life. I think I read that correctly. And then this is the other side, that it was the sewing was tied up, which you can't really get in a PDF. And the world turned on its head, and the world was a big spike, and it was new. It was inside out. So that's the last page. We got to 23 pages, and that was through to November. So we're planning, because we didn't reach everyone with this one, we're planning a second zine. You can re-partake if you want to. Everyone's welcome to take a part. If you guys have anything else that you'd like to say about the project.
I just wanted to say that it was so nice seeing everyone's work come together and being a part of it. It was very much a magical experience, and I can't speak for everyone, but definitely for me, knowing that there was a project that I was being a part of and I was collaborating on through this really, really difficult time really helped keep me grounded, at least. So I really do appreciate the opportunity so much. Thank you. And I'm really looking forward to seeing what else occurs.
Yeah, definitely. Thank you so much. I'm really glad. And it's been so nice for you guys to come and talk about your work and give like a real sort of deep understanding. And obviously for you guys to kind of be inspired and to hear that is really insightful. So hopefully, we'll have another zine and another talk like this. So thank you so much for coming, and hopefully you speak soon.
Nice to see you too.
Really nice to see you, Helen.
Nice to see you.
Congratulations. It's so brilliant to have achieved anything in 2020, I think. I mean, just brilliant. Well done.
Thank you. All right, it's going to suddenly end, so I just want to give you some warning.
Lovely to meet you.
Nice to meet you too.